So welcome everyone to our Distributed Ledger Technology Partnerships talk. My name is Annie Ma Weaver and I manage technology partnerships for Google Cloud, focused on our priority verticals including financial services. So Google Cloud, public cloud in general, and the Google Cloud in specific, is a really good fit for financial services because of the specific pain points of that industry, and also the pain point of legacy IT, which plagues all enterprises. I'm not going to insult you by reading from my slide, but instead I'm going to speak over it because I think that's just a helpful way to complement and illustrate things. Over the last year and a half, we've seen a lot of momentum in financial services with customers and partners. And over the next couple days at Next, I wanted to highlight some of those financial services customer and partner sessions where you can really hear about it straight from them. I have not listed sessions that have already happened because we have not invented time travel yet. So distributed ledger technology, or DLT, is relevant to more than financial services. As I've been talking with customers and partners, we've heard about use cases across multiple verticals. And I'm really excited about the potential of these applications, but many of them, as you know, are nascent, and we want to be the public cloud upon which developers build these use cases and figure out which of them are really the ones that are meant to scale and are meant to be widely adopted. The question I get often is, why are companies looking at DLT? And there are a lot of potential benefits around cost, trust, and security, but many of them are still potential ones, and that's where I think Google Cloud can help. We can be a platform upon which you can take your ideas and you can bring them to fruition, and then these potential benefits can be realized. So I'm excited to announce, and as we also announced in a blog post yesterday, that you can now develop DLT solutions on Google Cloud. You can do them in a DIY fashion with our open source integrations with two leading DLT platforms, Hyperledger and Ethereum. Or if you need more advice and help through the process, you can work with our partners, Digital Asset and BlockApps, who will soon be speaking to you more about what they do and how they're working with us. So to summarize, we have both DIY and also proprietary partnerships that enable you to build DLT applications on GCP. These will be available through the Cloud Launcher Market, which we're now rebranding as Marketplace. So now I'm really excited to invite onto the stage Blythe Masters, CEO of Digital Asset, who will tell you more about this incredible company and how they're working with Google Cloud.
Thank you, Annie, and hello everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here. As you heard, I'm Blythe Masters and I'm the CEO of Digital Asset, a new partner of Google Cloud. I'm also a 27-year veteran of JP Morgan and the former CFO of its global investment bank. And back in 2015, I came across a nascent team of developers, academic cryptographers, and even former traders and one former tank commander who had an extreme drive and technology vision whose implications, if I'm really honest, neither they nor even I truly understood at the time. So what made me lose my mind one day back in 2015, given my background, and go sign up for a microscopic startup in the tech space with no technology background? I'm a business person by background, in what was literally a 5-person team plus a dog. The answer lies in a big idea, an idea that's big enough to have material financial implications and certainly easily big enough to make a big career bet on. The idea, of course, was blockchain. Back in 2015, everyone thought that blockchain was all about cryptocurrencies, and actually some of you may be forgiven for still feeling that way today. But the reality is that blockchain is a lot bigger than cryptocurrencies, and the applications go far and wide. So here, 3.5 or so years later, is the vision of our company, Digital Asset. Simply put, we believe that blockchain offers the opportunity to unleash the kind of furiously paced innovation that the tech industry has become accustomed to over the past 10 years, and yet which has been notably absent from financial services and other giant enterprise sectors, from healthcare to GovTech and beyond. It will revolutionize the processing of every asset, every transaction, every workflow across and within every business in different companies in the world. It's not a small vision. Now, to understand this, just with any great technology solution, you need to understand what is the problem that is being solved. 15 years ago, if you had predicted that we would see the advent of self-driving cars more quickly than we would discover the ability to sell an equity and get your cash for that in less than 2 days, or that even you'd have the simple privilege of walking from one doctor's office to the next and expecting your medical records and identity to travel with you, you would have been declared insane. But the reality is that we got the self-driving car first. How on earth could that be the case? Well, the answer lies in something as banal and mundane as data architecture. It turns out that enterprise infrastructure, from financial services to healthcare and beyond, has been stymied by what we call siloization. Why? Because businesses can't securely trust, or could not until now, their ability to share and process data without compromising their responsibility for their books and records and confidentiality and privacy. Now, what silos lead to is unnecessary duplication of records, error-prone updates, asymmetric information, expensive and time-consuming breaks, and literally, in financial services alone, tens of billions of dollars a year in a completely zero value-added effort of reconciling, that means ticking and tying, records that are different that should in fact be the same, simply because they didn't share a common or golden source of record. It was my exposure over almost 30 years in the bowels of the financial services industry to the understanding of the sheer scale of the cost, the waste, the inefficiency, and ultimately the risk associated with this that led me to believe all in blockchain and to move to digital asset. Blockchain, or as it has become known as DLT, distributed ledger technology, will change all of this. Simply put, it's a new form of secure database architecture that offers businesses, enterprise, for the first time, certainty of shared, real-time, identical records, synchronized processing, programmable or automatable assets and associated workflows, without loss of privacy or confidentiality, and without continuing to have responsibility for being able to independently validate your own books and records. Just as the internet unleashed and liberated the free flow of information 20 years ago and changed everything, blockchain is going to liberate the processing of value, saving hundreds of billions of dollars of cost and unleashing innovation. To hear more about how this will happen, I'll introduce you to two of my colleagues, our CTO, Shaul Kveer, and our Chief Marketing Officer, Dan O'Prey.
Thank you, Blythe. So what do we mean when we say unleashing web-based innovation? That's a very tall order to fill. And we're being hosted here by Google, a company who's really been at that forefront of web-based innovation. And we've been hearing for the past few days about amazing infrastructure or mutualized infrastructure, things like Basel and Kubernetes and the continuous integration and continuous deployment pipelines that Google has. And what those mutualized infrastructures have done, they have really optimized for rate of change, for introducing a high rate of change and enabling developers to ship fast, ship high quality, and to ship efficiently to their customers new functionality with very quick iteration times. Now, we don't have that today in the domain of cross-enterprise business dealings. When we look at the largest enterprises, at networks across enterprises of finance, healthcare, government, developers don't have that same agility that they have within one company. When I came out of low-level development doing cryptography and x86 architecture and wanted to launch a business, I had to read a few tutorials, to read a few books, and very quickly learning things like Rails and Angular and cloud APIs, I was able within a matter of weeks to go and deploy a new business. And that really blew my mind, how fast you can be efficient. And that doesn't exist when you look at how things are working today across enterprises. And that's what we want to bring through having mutualized infrastructure, having one infrastructure that's deployed, that takes care of all of the heavy lifting, and allows the developers to think about the business flows that they're developing. And we ask ourselves every day, what kind of innovation, what kind of acceleration can we do if the best and brightest college grads of tomorrow will be able to do a pull request or be able to launch their business deeply integrated from the start into those networks that are already deployed across these large enterprises. And if they won't have to think about deploying software for one enterprise in a silo for one company, but can now start thinking about the broad picture, about what it looks to do cross-enterprise workflows. So there's a ton of buzz and hype around blockchain, and the question is, what is it that's unique about this offering, about the digital asset SDK and platform, and about this joint offering with Google Cloud that's going to enable what we're saying, enable unleashing web-based innovation?
So what does that mean for your business? So DAML, the digital asset modeling language, is a new smart contract language developed by Digital Asset to, as Schultz said, abstract away the underlying infrastructure. So you don't need to worry about the cryptography or the distribution or notifications or privacy. You just focus on the business of your business. What drives value to your customers, and let the language and the platform take care of everything behind the scenes. In addition to that, we announced yesterday the DAML platform as a service on Google Cloud. Similarly, just lets you focus on the application. Build something that delivers value. Do not worry about configuring the platform, configuring the network, deploying the software, and the underlying infrastructure. So together, this enables rapid prototyping for your business, shorter time to market, building distributed ledger applications that can deliver value faster and sooner than otherwise possible, and enabling you to be more agile to changing customer demands, regulatory requirements, or market forces.
So you've all heard about public blockchains, and in public blockchains, what those have achieved, essentially getting data integrity across a large-scale deployment, or getting consensus over data across a large group of entities, be it people or companies, and synchronizing those views. And that is a huge achievement. What most public blockchains don't deal with very well is data confidentiality. We get the data integrity, we get that synchronized view, but everyone gets that same view. And there are varying degrees of confidentiality. Some do get it right, but what they struggle dealing with is dealing with very complex or generic workflows, the types of workflows we have in most large enterprises today. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a huge thing, and it's a great solution to a specific set of problems, but it's for that specific set of problems. What we did at Digital Asset, when we started, we were a group of cryptocurrency enthusiasts and developers, and we said, how do we take the same inspiration of the same types of solutions and apply it to a different domain, to the domain of large cross-enterprise workflows? Now, in the private distributed ledger space, we see a lot of attempts to achieve confidentiality by really siloing data or using techniques such as encryption, zero-knowledge proofs, or overlay networks on top of a base network to now compartmentalize the data. What most of those solutions do is they trade off integrity, or in many cases, liveness. And it's a bit too much to dive deep. I would love to go in deeper in this talk, but we talk much more in depth about this in our blog, and I urge everyone to go to daml.com to see how we thought about these trade-offs between integrity, privacy, and liveness. So what did we do with the digital asset platform? Through a series since 2014 of working with very large potential customers, and today customers, we went through a series of increasingly complex MVPs on building a platform. And we actually started from those public blockchain roots, which was my background in my alma mater and zero-knowledge proofs. What we actually found out is that the hardest problem that needed to get solved was the problem of data architecture, of how do you structure your data in a way that preserves integrity across a distributed system, where not everyone has all data, so it also preserves privacy, and also preserves liveness, that the network can't stop when you maintain those other two properties, the integrity and the privacy. What we did is we built a formal modeling of what the data should look like on a distributed ledger. Then we built a domain-specific language, again, through a series of MVPs and understanding deeper what those use cases are of our clients. We built a domain-specific language that forces the developer to structure the data in such a way that is amenable to distributed ledgers. On the other side, we wanted it to be very efficient. So it lets the developer only think about their business use case, about their business workflow, and not have to think about the infrastructure that they're deploying to. What we got to is a platform that does real-time reconciliation across all of the nodes in the network, is auditable, analyzable, extensible, and when you build workflows, you can use those common workflows and reuse them. So if someone builds a library or a module, you can then reuse that workflow, and again, build on top of the shoulders of giants. DAML, or the digital asset modeling language, that's the language that we created, and that's the surface or the API that a developer sees. They build using this language, and that gets deployed to pretty complex infrastructure. Now, DAML is a language that was built bottom-up, purpose-built for the domain of distributed ledgers. What we've seen in the public blockchain space, and I'm sure everyone has heard about these, are very public bugs that cost stakeholders in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, that's simply something we can't allow in our domain. Some clients are using our SDK today to model businesses that run daily volumes in the trillions of dollars. So a typical transaction size is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. We can't allow a bug. Now, those bugs that happen in the public blockchain space aren't because developers aren't skilled. These were very skilled developers. It's because they lack the right tools to build these types of workflows in a secure manner. We believe there are specific domains that are mission critical that require the type of frameworks for that. In a prior life, I was operating and maintaining missile defense systems that were protecting my life, protecting my shipmates' lives, and I'm extremely grateful that none of those were written in JavaScript. And we took that approach. We took that approach of building something that's purpose-built for this domain. What we came up with was DAML, and that's a language that really abstracts away the ledger details. And that's the offering that we're making available on Google Cloud as of yesterday.
So what can you model in DAML? Our customers and our partners have built distributed ledger applications across many different industries. For example, when you think about smart contracts, what they really are at their core, when you take away the hype and the fluff, are shared business processes that span across organizations. As such, the potential for the use of DAML and smart contracts more broadly within commerce is absolutely huge. It can cover every asset, transaction, and workflow. So, for example, we've been working with a large clearinghouse in the healthcare space to do straight-through processing for claims eligibility and payments to make sure that the payer and provider and everyone throughout that value chain sees the same data in real time. Medical records, as Blythe mentioned earlier, can be synchronized amongst insurers, patients, doctors, and hospitals, and selectively reveal only the pertinent piece of information to each of those entities. Our partners have been exploring in supply chain, pharmaceutical supply chain, through the manufacture, transport, and sale of drugs, many of which there's a large problem with counterfeiting, to ensure that what you receive at the end of that supply chain is what was produced at the beginning. A complex processes can be coordinated between e-commerce sites and fulfillment centers and payment providers and down to the shipping company to coordinate all across the value chain across multiple different distinct legal entities and many more. So we've been working with partners on managing software licenses, simplifying the mortgage application process, for insurance, reinsurance, as well as even the issuance, secondary market, and redemption, the use of concert tickets. So as you can see, there's really a broad application for DAML. DAML can be used for any multi-party workflow. But the largest traction we've seen so far has been within financial services. So you're going to see here a list of some of our investors, each of which are exploring using DAML, building DAML-driven applications in their own way. Banks, stock exchange groups, large technology vendors, global systems integrators are building DAML-driven applications for internal use cases across business lines, bilaterally between two entities, or even as replacements for entire markets. And these use cases, even within financial services, are very varied. Cash equities, repo, collateral management. There's a lot of very, very complex behind-the-scenes processes that most of us are blissfully unaware of, but are vital to the functioning of the global economy. So these are some of the most highly regulated and most demanding customers in the world. The goal is if we can solve for them, we can solve for any commercial use case. This is no longer a case of will DLT see adoption, but when. And that leads on to a great case study, one of our marquee clients, the Australian Securities Exchange, the ASX, who we've been working with for just over 3 years now. So the ASX are doing this for real. They're not playing around anymore. They have committed to take into production a full replacement, a national scale, first financial market infrastructure project using a distributed ledger. This is not a POC. This is not a pilot. This is a real production build that is going to production. And it's not a greenfield application. It's not a peripheral service. This is an actual replacement. At the end of this process, they will be switching off their clearing and settlement system for cash equities and replacing it entirely with the digital asset platform and DAML. So this isn't mangoes on a blockchain. This isn't collectible kitties. This is an application that really matters. If this goes down, the Australian economy is affected. People's pensions are affected, and it's a real mission-critical system. Every single stock in Australia will be cleared and settled on a blockchain. And now we're excited to bring that technology to Google Cloud. So yesterday, we were delighted to announce that Digital Asset and Google Cloud have been collaborating to bring the technology that you've been hearing about today to GCP. We announced that Google Cloud have joined the private beta of our developer program, and as such, their solution architects can explore with their clients applications within various different industries using DAML and our technology. We also announced the addition of DAML Pass, the platform as a service hosted on Google Cloud. So similarly, customers can just spin that up and quickly and easily start building applications. And later this year, Google will be hosting a series of developer conferences focused around DAML. And if you are interested in joining, please visit daml.com and registering your interest there.
As Dan said, we're extremely excited. For me, this is a bit of a personal excitement. It's paying it forward. Just like I said, I was mind blown when I started web development, seeing how fast you can deploy a business. I'm hoping that people will be using this in the future, or I know people will be using this in the future, in order to deploy their businesses at much larger scale and really bring that pace that you can do things much faster. So I wish we had time for a live demo. I'm a coder, and that's what we do. But the next best thing, at least, we'll talk a little bit about what this offering is. So first of all, at the top layer, what you can do is build applications using all of the best of the Google Cloud infrastructure, things like Google Cloud Functions and TensorFlow and Spanner. Now, I can talk for hours about why these offerings are so fit for purpose for building applications that connect into a distributed ledger. But just to give a sense, many of the workflows in the financial world that we're working with need data analysis, need risk analysis, and many types of optimizations. And those are things that we believe will really be able to leverage machine learning and, for example, infrastructure such as TensorFlow to build very, very efficient applications that connect into a distributed ledger. Then you have the DEML SDK. And the DEML SDK was really built to allow the developers to very, very quickly reason about a distributed application across many companies and not just across one enterprise. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the next few slides. The SDK builds those distributed applications that get deployed onto the DA platform. And this is a DA platform that's highly optimized for Google Cloud, leveraging infrastructure such as the Google Kubernetes engine and Stackdriver. Then you can use managed services, either a managed platform that's managed by a digital asset or by one of our many channel partners running on Google Cloud and managed by a channel partner, or you can use your own Google Cloud account to deploy either one node or a full network of nodes. You can have one node that connects into an existing network and run it on your own Google Cloud account. And last, you can automate all of this through Orbitera, which really gives you a few minutes and almost a one-click type engagement of using the Orbitera marketplace to quickly launch and configure and deploy a running network. So on the development side, on the IDE, the DEML integrated development environment provides real-time feedback to the developers as they're writing code to support efficient development of correct smart contracts. And what we've been hearing from the channel partners in their usage of the DEML SDK is that they were amazed at how fast they can go from nothing to writing a POC or an MVP on a running distributed ledger at high scale. We're very excited with the announcement yesterday that now the Google's client engineers and architects have the ability, have joined our private beta, and they have the ability now to extend to their clients. So for all of the Google clients here who want to hear more about blockchain applications, you can reach out to your account representatives and your client engineers, and they'll be happy to work and iterate on solutions. Further than that, not just MVPs and POCs, we've already gone through a process of 3 years of working with very large, very, very complex workflows. And even there, these are institutions that are very, very used to heavy waterfall development. And we've been receiving amazing feedback on that front, both directly and through channel partners, on the cycle times of deploying new features as they're creating these workflows. So they're used to having very, very different stages of deployment, building features, testing. And now they can really compress those cycles, again, into that same experience that a developer today in a tech company has, having a running platform and very quickly developing and deploying and going through that whole process all the way to developing a feature, testing it, having it signed off by the customer, and going into QA. On the testing front, there's an integrated scenario language, which gives a full test-driven development or behavior-driven development and unit testing ability, which is baked into the integrated development environment. There's a sandbox that's always running in the background, so if you make a mistake, if you write a bug, it's always running all of the unit tests in the background, and you get an immediate feedback loop of that sandbox of a distributed environment that's running locally on your laptop. So you immediately get that feedback, and you can click on those scenarios and essentially get debug tools, a transaction graph explorer in the same view. So the developer can see the code, the tests, any errors in tests, and the transaction graph explorer at the same time, and have that ability to go and debug in one environment. And you know that if it's running in that environment, you can immediately deploy to a robust auto-scaling and highly available infrastructure. Of course, if you build, be it an MVP, a POC, or a large production full-stack solution, you need the ability to demonstrate it, or you need the ability to build UI components. So we have in the SDK auto code generation tools that take whatever smart contracts and business logic that you wrote, immediately creates gRPC bindings so that you can build applications in whatever language you want to build applications. There is a JVM framework if you want to use our framework in order to get all of the high availability and auto scaling properties out of the box. You get the ability to dynamically create front ends. So there's a GraphQL backend, and it auto generates the schemas for that backend and the types, and it creates React components, so you can immediately get those components and build your own UI. And again, the cycle times on this are really amazing. The speed at which you can get everything all the way to a front end. And we have 2 or 3 developers building POCs that typically took months. And of course, last but not least, you want the ability to deploy. And here we're not talking about deploying something locally or on 1 machine or 2 machines. You really want to deploy, and you want to deploy to a robust Kubernetes cluster that's running in, be it on-prem, private cloud, or public cloud. And in the case of running it on the Google Cloud, running it on a very highly optimized Google Cloud that has all of the tools to operate your environment. And as of our announcement yesterday, and very soon we'll be making this available, that Orbitera deployment that makes it really seamless to go run and start operating that network.
So we're delighted to be collaborating with Google Cloud to bring the blockchain solutions to GCP. To learn more about DAML, next slide. Please visit daml.com, where you can request early access to our developer program, which includes both access to the DAML SDK developer preview and the DAML platform as a service, which we'll be rolling out throughout the course of the year. If you'd like to see how you can work with digital assets, partner with us to bring blockchain applications to your industry, please email us at partners@digitalasset.com. As Sean mentioned, reach out to your Google account representative and discuss how they can help assist you bringing Google Cloud-based applications to your industry. Or come chat to myself, Shoal, or a few of the other members of the digital asset team after this session. So thank you very much. Thank you for having us, Annie, and back to you.
Thank you, Dan and Shaul. That was fantastic. Let's give them another round of applause. Okay. So following on that, I'm also really excited to introduce the founder and CEO of another DLT partner of ours, BlockApps. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Kieran James Lubin.
Thank you very much, Jenny, and great to meet everyone. How's the volume? Can't hear? Can you turn me up? Better now? Yeah, fantastic. All right. So I'm, as Andy noted, the founder and CEO of BlockApps. At BlockApps, my role has ranged from actually writing our core backend software all the way through to what I do today, which is events like this, interfacing with our partners and our customers, et cetera. So we kicked off in 2015, around the same time as Digital Asset, which makes us ancient for blockchain companies. And we were sort of more of a community-first sort of company. So we're in the Ethereum ecosystem and created the first commercial-grade version of Ethereum, which fairly early on we realized could be deployed not just in the public blockchain configuration, which you've likely heard the most about, but specifically in the enterprise. So we consider ourselves the creator of the blockchain as a service category, which we kicked off in late 2015 with one of Google's competitors, who I won't name, and are very happy to help bring blockchain as a service to the Google Cloud platform today. So we believe also we're the first to bring a production blockchain application online in a Fortune 500 context. This is with the world's largest mining company, BHP Billiton, in late 2016. And through that effort, we learned a lot about what it takes for enterprises to adopt blockchain technology, and the fact that enterprise needs are somewhat orthogonal to what you see in the public networks as far as, one, performance, transaction throughput, latency, the complexity of the business logic present in the enterprise, and all the non-functional requirements, compliance, privacy, et cetera, which commercial vendors like us help our customers through, where you don't see in the more open source focused public blockchain area. So in any case, we found that a number of other vendors were trying to solve the same problems in the Ethereum ecosystem. One way to think of what Ethereum has done, it's not just a public blockchain, but it's also a protocol standard and is something of a platform. And we're finding the Ethereum virtual machine and Solidity to sort of be like Java in the sense that it was invented for one context, Java being invented for embedded systems programming, but is being deployed in many other contexts and becoming a developer-focused kind of community standard that enterprises are also deploying. So we got together with several of our, one, large customers, and two, technology companies who wanted to see the adoption of sort of a Java-style standards-based approach to make blockchain technology a reality in the enterprise. So we're on the founding board of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, and I personally chair the technical steering committee that sets out to define what Ethereum means in the enterprise. So a little bit on our platform. So we, again, are a platform provider. We sit atop the Google Cloud and on the cloud marketplace. And we see ourselves as built on open standards. So you can think of blockchains, again, as not just platforms, but protocols for communication and transactions. And so we implement these protocols and facilitate the creation of enterprise applications across a variety of verticals. As far as our platform goes, it's sort of split into kind of two core use cases. One, the ledger itself. So on the lower side here, the virtual machine, which does transaction processing, synchronization, which comprises the peer-to-peer network, and the consensus algorithm that allows everyone to arrive at the same shared truth. And the database component, which allows our customers to query the blockchain as they would a traditional relational database. And this is all exposed through a variety of APIs, which do things like key management. So customers don't have to think about the nitty-gritty of the life cycle of the private keys, which encode the data that's on the blockchain. Querying APIs that are built out of the box. So when you write a smart contract, you have an API for it that front-end developers can write user interfaces to without any additional work, etc. So let's talk through a few use cases that are actually deployed in production across a variety of our customers. So obviously, there's a lot of blockchain adoption in financial services. So that is where we see a tremendous amount of our business and have designed our platform around a number of the requirements. Use cases like real-time gross settlement. So this is bank-to-bank intraday transfers so that banks can cover their liabilities in a very low latency situation. KYC, consumer customer identity management, so that customers may decouple their personal identity from the information that their financial institutions have to streamline onboarding so that they can consume products across a variety of financial institutions much more easily. We also have a tremendous amount of work in supply chain. So, and this is cross sectors as well. I mentioned the use case with the world's largest mining company, BHP Billiton, but we're deploying supply chain management software in agriculture, in commodities, etc. We even have some work in the government. So later this year, we will turn on a production system that will help departments of motor vehicles track vehicle title, electronic lien and title, and vehicle registrations through their life cycle. And we have a lot of business in the energy sector as well, which is also a strength of Google's. Finally, we've been working with the Google team for maybe 5-6 months now. We actually have a launch customer for this event, so we are happy to announce a partnership with a company called MoneyCatcha. So MoneyCatcha is an Australian-based financial services firm that provides two blockchain platforms based on BlockApps Strato. One is called RegChain. This is a loan management product, and the other is called HomeChain. So what their technology allows their global banking customers to do is understand the life cycle of loans and understand all the parameters for compliance around these loans. So there are a lot of data sources to correlate when servicing personal loans that fit the blockchain architecture in a fairly seamless way. And so they've partnered with us and actually already begun to launch their application on the Google Cloud. So first reference customer already here. little bit more on what they do. So their reg chain product does risk compliance and reporting, again, on the loan data that we see, and hooks not just into our platform, but some of Google's data services that allow them to do advanced analytics on the core data that is in the blockchain ledger. So finally, want to talk just a little bit about the technical integration. So we are available on the Google Cloud Launcher or the Google Cloud Marketplace now. Our platform is very easy to use, but scales all the way through real enterprise production implications. You can see a picture of it here. It has a built-in blockchain explorer, tools for live editing smart contracts, deploying them on the blockchain itself, search across all of the data that is in the blockchain, and very quickly you'll find that your teams or your developers will be able to go from prototyping an application to deploying that application to productionizing it. So we're very happy to partner with Google on this journey to making blockchain not just a deployed, but at reasonable scale reality now, to taking it to the whole world. So thank you very much. Again, I'm Kieran James Libin from BlockApps. So please, one, interact with me after the session, two, visit us at blockapps.net or find us on the Google Cloud Launcher Marketplace, and three, speak to your Google account executives and use our products on Google Cloud Marketplace. Thank you.
So I have the tough job of following after those two fantastic presentation sections. So be easy on me. So I'm going to close out with the open source integrations of Hyperledger Fabric and Ethereum. As I mentioned at the start, we want to be your preferred public cloud for testing, developing, and launching DLT applications. And for that, we want to meet you where you are. So if you need help with your building, with your ideating, then you've got really great partners in Digital Asset and BlockApps. But if you're the type that's more DIY and you want to get your hands dirty and build from scratch yourself, we're also there for you. So the first integration that I'm happy to share is of Hyperledger Fabric. This was built by a Google engineer. It is an open source integration of open source code. You can start using it today on our Google Cloud Launcher, now called Marketplace. And as you can see, it's a click to deploy option. So super excited to share this because it is something that, again, you can start using today. We also are building an open source integration of Ethereum, which will also be available on Marketplace. But this being software development timelines, it was supposed to be done by this week, but this week slipped a little. So it will be done, I've been told, by my engineer, who I don't see here, but if he's here, looking at you, it should be done in a few weeks in August. So finally, I wanted to give a really big hearty thank you to all of you for coming and hearing more about what we're doing with DLT partners, and also to our DLT partners, BlockApps and Digital Asset, who have been so fantastic to work with, have really taken not just the technology approach, but to Shal's point, also our cultural approach to development to heart, and brought that to our cloud. So we're so excited about this, and as everyone has mentioned, if you have questions, come find us afterwards. Thank you.